Welcome to Newsday. I'm Sharonjit Lail in Singapore. The headlines. Donald Trump says he hasn't ruled out military action against North Korea after Saturday's second ballistic missile test in 2 weeks.
A lot of people, I'm sure, tried to take that power away, whether it was his uncle or anybody else. And he was able to do it. So obviously he's a pretty smart cookie.
The climbing world pays tribute to Uli Steck. One of the world's best-known mountaineers is killed in an accident on Mount Everest.
And hello, I'm Tom Donkin in London, also in the programme. Tornadoes hit Texas, leaving at least 9 people dead and nearly 50 in hospital. Emergency services say they fear the death toll may rise. And he's had an impressive run in the World Snooker Championship. How the success of Ding Junhui is winning over of new Chinese fans for the sport.
Live from our studios in Singapore and London. This is BBC World News. It's Newsday.
Singapore, 1 in the morning in London and 8 in the evening in Washington, where President Donald Trump has been singing the praises of China, in sharp contrast to his campaign rhetoric. In an interview with the American CBS network, the US president said he was in constant touch with President Xi Jinping and believed he was putting the pressure on North Korea to rein in its leader, Kim Jong-un's nuclear ambitions.
The relationship I have with China, it's been already acclaimed as being something very special, something very different than we've ever had.
Well, on North Korea, Mr. Trump warned that a conflict with the country could kill millions of people, but he had some surprising words of praise for its supreme leader, Kim Jong-un.
He's dealing with obviously very tough people, in particular the generals and others. And at a very young age, he was able to assume power. A lot of people, I'm sure, tried to take that power away, whether it was his uncle or anybody else. And he was able to do it. So obviously, he's a pretty smart cookie.
Well, I've been speaking to our North America editor, John Sopel, about the president's interview and the possibility of a new special relationship with China.
I think the one thing you have to accept is that with President Trump, you can go in and out of favour quite fast. I mean, during the campaign, President Xi was responsible for the terrible trade deals that were hitting America. He was responsible for manipulating Chinese currency to the disadvantage of the Americans. But now he is seen as a needed ally in the attempts to rein in North Korea and their nuclear program. And so you're seeing lavish praise being heaped upon President Xi from Donald Trump. I thought also something else came out at the weekend that I thought was really interesting. He put out a tweet saying that Kim Jong-un had shown disrespect to President Xi by trying to hold another missile test. And I thought that all spoke to one thing. I want to hold President Xi very close because any success in North Korea has to go through China.
It was very interesting, that interview on US TV. He even appeared to show a bit of empathy for the North Korean leader.
Well, I kind of think that Donald Trump respects people who are strong, who've shown themselves to be resilient. And I think he looks at Kim Jong-un, this young man who came to power when there were presumably an awful lot of generals who were jockeying for position, and said, you know what? He's a pretty smart cookie. And I think that also is hoping that one day, maybe, he will be able to negotiate with Kim Jong-un. So maybe there was a little bit of flattery there. Maybe he was offering something that Kim Jong-un might bite on as a way of kind of de-escalating the tensions that are in the Korean Peninsula at the moment.
That was BBC's John Sopel there. Now let's take a look at some of the day's other news. And Uli Steck, one of the most famous and fastest climbers in the world, has died on Mount Everest. The 41-year-old, believed to have slipped from a rock face, he's best known for record-breaking speed climbs in the Alpine peaks. And the explorer, Sir Ranulph Fiennes, has been among those paying tribute.
The climbing world will be really sorry, as they were when Ed Hillary died after doing the first ascent of Everest, because he broke amazing records by a mixture of modesty, humility, and great ability, on top of athleticism of the most amazing type.
Tributes there for Uli Steck. Also making news today, surveillance camera footage from Beijing has shown the horrifying moments when an SUV lost control in an underground car park, killing one security guard and injuring 2 other workers. The deadly accident occurred last Wednesday, and the driver of the car had allegedly pushed the accelerator rather than the brake pedal while trying to stop her car. Southeast Asian leaders took a softer stance on the South China Sea dispute during their weekend summit in Manila. A statement was released after the end of the summit, dropping references to land reclamation and militarization. Those references had been included in the text during last year's meeting. Of course, China is extremely sensitive to comments about its activities in the Spratly Islands. The United Nations says 36 members of the ethnic Yazidis group held as slaves by the Islamic State group have been freed in Iraq. The group includes men, women and children who were in captivity for nearly 3 years. The UN believes up to 1,500 women and girls are still being held. The former billionaire Ike Batista, who was once one of the world's richest men, has left prison in Brazil for house arrest ahead of a corruption trial. Batista was worth more than $30 billion just 5 years ago, but has now lost much of his empire. He's been accused of bribery and hiding illegal funds offshore. Indonesia's President Joko Widodo has been greeted with a mix of protest and celebration during a visit to Hong Kong, where thousands of Indonesians work as domestic helpers. Ahead of the visit, President Widodo said he aimed to improve his country's economy so that one day no citizen would need to work abroad. Over recent years, there's been concern about the treatment of foreign maids in Hong Kong. And one of the big power brokers in the world of sport has resigned from all of his football roles after being linked to a corruption scandal. Sheikh Ahmad Al Fahad Al Sabah of Kuwait also said he would not stand for re-election next month. To the ruling council of football's governing body FIFA, he has denied any wrongdoing. Finally, take a look at these pictures. It's the first passenger vessel to sail through the newly expanded locks of the Panama Canal. The Disney Wonderliner is the first of 18 cruise ships destined to make the journey through the canal, and this journey does represent something of a milestone because the lock has until now stopped many cruisers from fitting through. But the new lock is now 21 meters wider and 6 meters deeper.
Now, at least 5 people have been killed and around 50 injured after tornadoes struck the U.S. state of Texas. Emergency services are searching for missing people, and they say they fear the death toll may rise. As David Campanale now reports, the U.S. Midwest has been affected by an intensive weather system that has caused damage across several states.
It's Texas, and this region of the United States is known as Tornado Alley for its frequent, powerful storms. Twisters like this are not uncommon, but their dramatic capacity for death and destruction is unstoppable and always unwelcome. Homes in the state have been flattened, trees uprooted and cars overturned. At least one powerful storm hit the city of Canton, about 80 kilometers east of Dallas, and more were reported in surrounding areas.
There is a tornado crossing the road right in front of us.
Blocked roads have hindered emergency responders, who are still trying to get out to numerous calls for help.
Fatalities, I believe, the last, what I'm getting from coming, they're still coming in. We're talking about, I think, maybe 5 casualties. That number may go up in the morning once we can get into these areas where fish start deploying for some search and rescue and recovery right now. That number may go up. Hopefully it doesn't, but we do know we do have a number of fatalities as of right now.
Heavy rains and damaging winds have struck a broad swathe of the U.S. heartland. Downpours that began on Friday have been so intense, the ground has been unable to absorb the rainfall, causing widespread flooding and prompting evacuations. The governors of Missouri and Oklahoma have declared states of emergency due to flooding and the damage caused to power supplies and structures. The massive storm system has also delayed thousands of flights. Colorado and Wyoming further north have been struck by snowstorms. Heavy rain in the Midwest is expected to continue to the end of the weekend, along with wind gusts of 95 kilometers per hour. David Campanale, BBC News.
Let's take you back to our top story now, what seems to be a thawing of relations between President Donald Trump and China. And Stephen Sang is from London School of Oriental and African Studies. I asked him earlier whether the two countries were really on the same page when it came to the issue of North Korea.
Well, the two countries are on the same page in terms of not really wanting the Korean peninsula situation to slide into a war, but whether the Chinese president will be able to or is willing to deliver in the way that President Trump wants, I think that remains an open question.
And anything that China does in relation to North Korea, any economic squeeze they might put on Pyongyang, that's surely just down to trade with the US and not down to any personal relationship that President Trump may have developed with President Xi.
Well, I think you put your fingers on it. I think from the Chinese government's perspective, the single most important issue in the relationship between China and the United States is the trade relationship and the so-called 100 days of negotiation to a trade deal. But then, in order to get President Trump to back off, ease of pressure on China on trade, the Chinese will have to deliver something over North Korea.
What's your take on this? Donald Trump, speaks very flowery about the relationship with President Xi, says it's something that the US and China haven't seen before. Is that your reading of the situation?
Well, clearly President Trump is putting on a particular gloss for a reason. It would appear that he would have been advised by his military advisors that the use of force is really not a good option. And that being the case, he will need China to get North Korea to do some kind of a deal. And therefore, he's being very complimentary to President Xi, and therefore put pressure on President Xi to do something about it. And he's also being very complimentary to young Mr. Kim in order to open a door to potentially some kind of diplomatic activities.
And how would the Chinese leadership react to that kind of complimentary flattery, if you like? Surely the Chinese leadership is more shrewd than that.
Well, the Chinese leadership absolutely, as you say, is much more shrewd about that sort of thing. But on the other hand, they also want to have a good working relationship with President Trump, so they are not going to say anything to contradict him. What they will try to do is to do what they can, but not necessarily everything they can possibly do, in order to try to ease the tension over North Korea and therefore avoid being sucked into a confrontation that they don't want.
And that was Professor Stephen Sang there speaking earlier to Tom. Well, you're watching Newsday on the BBC. Still to come on the programme, as bike-sharing schemes take off in China, we take a look at how they're providing a timely boost for bicycle manufacturers.
You're watching Newsday on the BBC. Still to come on the programme. First day in his new job after seeing off dozens of applicants, Austria's hermit on a hillside starts work.
Mujahideen, the mood here is of great celebration. This is the end of a 12-year war for them. They've taken the capital which they've been fighting for so long.
It was 7 o'clock in the morning, on the day when power began to pass from the minority to the majority, when Africa, after 300 years, reclaimed its last white colony.
Welcome back to Newsday on the BBC. I'm Sharonjit Lail in Singapore.
And I'm Tom Donkin in London with our top stories. President Trump says the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is a pretty smart cookie, while also warning that a conflict involving Pyongyang could kill millions of people.
And the climbing world pays tribute to Uli Steck, one of the world's best-known mountaineers, is killed in an accident on Mount Everest. Well, let's take a look at some of the front pages from around the world now. We start with the South China Morning Post, and on its front page, the story we were hearing about just a little bit earlier of Indonesia's President Joko Widodo on a visit to Hong Kong. Apparently he's getting something of the rock star treatment from those attending his talk. The paper says security at the event was high. Now, the Financial Times says Mexico is urging President Trump to reuse parts of the aborted Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement to create a manufacturing powerhouse between the US, Mexico and Canada that could rival China's. And in the Japan Times, there's a photo of 600 beautiful blue carp streamers. They've been put up in the memory of all the children who were killed in Japan's earthquake-triggered tsunami in March 2011. Well, that brings you up to date with the papers. Tom, what are some stories sparking discussions online?
Well, Sharon G, it was hard to miss the glitz and the glamour of that big night on the American social calendar. I'm talking about, of course, the dinner that Donald Trump opted to miss on Saturday night. It's the annual White House Correspondents' Dinner attended by the great and the good of American political circles. And some of the speakers used Mr. Trump's absence to have some fun at his expense.
Now, he knocked out five-time world champion Ronnie O'Sullivan in a thrilling quarter-final match, but then he succumbed to the might of a three-time world champion in the semi-finals. China's Ding Junhui may be out of this year's snooker world championships, but the sport's popularity continues to grow. Snooker is now one of the most watched sports in China, with tens of millions of viewers tuning in and even more wanting to play. Well, earlier I spoke to Wendy Xu, a snooker promoter in Beijing who's been working with Ronnie O'Sullivan for the past 4 years. She's also a close friend of Ding Junhui's family, and she joined me from the UK city of Sheffield.
Most of our Chinese fans, snooker people are watching and expecting that he can win, but it's a shame that he didn't make it. But we believe that he did a very good job, and his performance is so proud of. We are so proud of his performance that day.
All right. You say there's a great deal of pride in his performance. How popular now is snooker in China, and are there many fans of Ding as well as of the game in China?
Oh, sure. Right now, snooker is really huge in China. It's growing much more bigger than before. We have to say that it's because of Ding's performance and his achievements to promote this business into such a big one right now.
We saw the game becoming very popular when Ding Junhui first hit the scene a number of years ago, but now he's, had a bit of a setback. Do you think the game will continue in such popularity in China?
Definitely it will. Actually, more and more people more and more young guys are involved in this sport in China right now. Most of them are huge fans of Ding himself. So that's why I'm thinking all of the business is growing up very, very well right now.
Now, obviously, you were saying earlier, he's still fairly young. Do you think he'll get there eventually as a snooker world champion?
Definitely he will. We're all expecting that. Actually, the year before last year and this year, we're all expecting that. But he's really trying. I believe that not in a far away, maybe next couple of years, he will make it.
China's watching the interest of the career of Ding Junhui with great interest. Now, a man chosen from dozens of competitors to take up a job as a hermit in Austria has received the keys to his new home. There was a mass to welcome the new resident as well. It's all part of a 350-year-old tradition in the town of Saalfelden, as Bethany Bell now reports.
Saalfelden has a new hermit. Stan van Utrecht, a divorced Catholic deacon from Belgium, has moved into the hermitage cut into the cliffs. There's been a hermit here for more than 350 years. But this is the first time a non-Austrian has taken up residence. The key was handed over at a mass in the neighbouring chapel of St George.
Die Schlüssel von dieser Einsiedelei.
He'll live alone.
Schlüssel von dieser Einsiedelei.
He'll live alone here from April to November each year, but it's not an entirely solitary existence. The hermit is also expected to greet hikers and visitors, something Mr. Van Utrecht welcomes.
Aber ich möchte eigentlich eintreten im Kloster.
I wanted to enter a monastery because I need silence and contemplation to pray. I was planning to enter one, but then I thought here in the hermitage I can get both. In the mornings and evenings silence, time to pray, reflect and contemplate, and during the day I see many people who I can talk to.
It will be a simple life. The hermitage has no electricity or running water, but it does have a spectacular view of the Alps. Bethany Bell, BBC News.
Until very recently, bicycle manufacturers in China were struggling for survival amidst the seemingly endless rise of the motor car. But that could be changing, and it's all thanks to the rise of bike share schemes. Harvey Biggs has more.
Air pollution is notorious in China's major cities, a problem the country's government is waging a high-profile war against. One of the driving factors behind the smog has been cars, but it hasn't always been that way. China was once regarded as the kingdom of bicycles, and for decades, two wheels dominated the streets. But as the country began opening up to the world in the 80s and 90s, cars began to take over. Today, less than 12% of commuters cycle to work, but the wheels of change are turning once again. At the Fushida Group's factory in Tianjin, the production line turns out a new bicycle every 15 seconds, 2,000 bikes every day. For the first time in decades, China is producing large numbers of bikes of the same model, colour and size. And these won't be bought by individuals. Instead, they will join the ranks of one of a number of growing bike share schemes. The simple concept isn't a new one, but is rapidly growing, reviving an industry that was struggling for survival just 6 months ago.
Back in 2015, we realized that this new model of leasing would have an impact, but the speed of market growth during the past half a year was beyond our imagination.
With China intent on dramatically reducing its air pollution levels, the return to two wheels is a welcome one. Beijing transport officials are now aiming to have 18% of the population riding to work by 2020, a target that should help manufacturers like this one keep growth on track. Harvey Biggs, BBC News.
Now, priceless Egyptian artefacts that were badly damaged during the Second World War are finally going on show. They're part of an exhibition here in the UK at Liverpool's World Museum. As Lindsay Prosser now reports.
From the everyday to the beautifully decorative, these objects reflect the rise and fall of ancient Egyptian society.
It's our most ambitious exhibition we've done for Egypt. We've got a whole range of artefacts, right from the prehistoric material, so a range of stone vases and stone tools, right through to Christianity in Egypt. So we've got these beautiful leather slippers that people would wear in life and also be buried in.
When the museum was bombed during the Second World War, part of its priceless collection was badly damaged.
We have two granite statues of the goddess Sekhmet. So she's a human form with a lioness head, and they were both shattered. The fire damaged the two pieces. They were intact before then, and it wasn't until recently that we've restored them, pieced them back together. Two pieces, they were intact before then, and it wasn't until recently that we've restored them, pieced them back together and put them back on display for the first time with the rest of the Egyptian collection.
The challenge for this team is to move the statues into the gallery without breaking them. At the same time, mummies who were also fire damaged are being installed.
We keep the objects not because they look stunning or because they look beautiful, it's because of the information they hold. And so part of what we do is unlocking the stories that they hold and revealing their hidden histories. We have 2 Romano period mummies here, and they're both quite young. One of them's a teenager. We have wondered in the past if they were associated with each other.
So they could be sisters?
You never know, they could be, yeah.
This display at Liverpool's World Museum is now the largest ancient Egyptian gallery outside of London. Lindsay Prosser, BBC News.
Now a chance discovery by a preschool child has saved a family of owls. 3 large eggs were found in a sawdust bucket next to a compost toilet at a forest school near Winchester in southern England. At first they weren't quite sure what type of bird it was until they saw this fly from the outdoor toilet. They are now a month old. In Sharonjit, the pair have been called Twit and Twu, and they have been tagged by wildlife experts.
What fantastic names for those owls. Now, you've been watching Newsdays. Of course, you can stay with us because coming up, we'll be taking a look at Australia's new rules. They've got rules that have tightened up their visa rules for skilled foreign workers. We'll be taking a look at the reaction from India.
Just before we go, there's time to take you to Chengdu City in Sichuan province. That's where we'll find a panda cub called Fush Un, who's been caught on camera enjoying a very easy life indeed. Fush Un looks pretty comfortable there, if you ask me. That's it from me and Sharonjit. Stay with us here. That's it from me and Sharonjit. Stay with us here on BBC News.
Hello there, good morning. We saw some big contrast across the UK on Sunday, with the southern half of the UK seeing quite a bit of cloud and some rain. So the view from one of our weather watchers mid-afternoon on Sunday. But at the same time, the northern half of the country, it was a pretty different day. Dry, bright, a bit breezy as well. This is the view on the shores of the Murray Firth. And I think we're going to keep a similar contrast through Bank Holiday Monday, because we've got this area of low pressure parked across the south of the UK. That'll be a focus for some wetter weather. Further north, it should be essentially dry, but quite breezy. But the breeze, at least overnight, helping to keep those temperatures up. Temperatures probably at the lowest in western Scotland, but it's here where we're going to see some of the highest temperatures as you get on into the afternoon. Now, we might just see 1 or 2 early showers in northern England, but they'll tend to fade away. And generally speaking, northern England northwards, it's dry, bright and breezy, whereas the southern half of the UK, we've got a lot of cloud, some outbreaks of rain, some showers. They'll be heavy at times. We've got a lot of cloud, some outbreaks of rain, some showers. They'll be heavy at times, I suspect, with the odd rumble of thunder, but equally a little bit of sunshine coming and going. Not overly warm, though, only 11, 12, maybe 13 degrees. Temperature contrast across northern England. North Sea coastal areas only 10 or 11 degrees, but on the other side, we'll get up to around about 14 or 15 in Carlisle. Could hit 16, 17 in northern parts of Northern Ireland. Only 8 degrees in the eastern side of Scotland with that breeze coming in from the North Sea, but could go as high as 18 in the sunshine on the western side. Now, through the evening, still got some of those showers, potentially heavy and thundery across that central swathe of England. They're working their way ever southwards, eventually clearing away. By dawn on Tuesday, I think most places will be dry. Still a fair bit of low cloud coming in to that eastern side of the UK. Maybe some mist and some fog as well. But temperatures are holding up at 7, 8 or 9 degrees in major town cities, a little bit lower than that in some rural spots. Now, through Tuesday, as our low-pressure system drifts away towards the south, it allows a big high-pressure system across Scandinavia to become the driving force of our weather, and that'll be with us for a good few days. And the driving force of our weather, and that'll be with us for a good few days. An easterly wind on a Tuesday drags in a lot of low cloud to the eastern side. It'll be quite cool here as well. Further west, much brighter skies. And we'll see some higher temperatures as well, 15, 16, 17 degrees in a few places, maybe 1 or 2 spots of rain to go with that cloud further east. Cloudy across the southern half of the UK on Wednesday, still that easterly breeze and still quite cool along that eastern coast. Head further west, particularly into the north and west, and it should be a lovely day with some sunshine and temperatures will be in the upper teens here. And then towards the end of the week, a lot of fine and dry weather to be had. Still a bit cloudy up and down the eastern side, where it will be on the cool side. Head further west, that's where it's going to be warmest, particularly so in the northwest.
What do our pets need to be healthy? They can't tell you, but science can. Our crack team of experts use pioneering research to bring you the very best advice, from the best way to treat fleas to how to help your pet lose weight. Trust me, I'm a vet. Starts Wednesday at 8 on BBC Two.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Britain has voted to end its membership of the European Union.
The Tory party have confirmed Theresa May will be the next Prime Minister.
These men are the first government forces to enter the city of Mosul.
So they are saying yes, unlawful killing.
That is an absolutely huge development in this story.
The BBC has been given unprecedented access inside a British jail.
The capsule is down. Great to see you looking so well.
It's just great to be back.
Hello, I'm Tom Donkin with BBC World News. Our top story. Donald Trump has been speaking highly of the North Korean leader. Hello, I'm Tom Donkin with BBC World News. Our top story. Donald Trump has been speaking highly of the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, calling him a pretty smart cookie. But Mr. Trump said he won't rule out military action against North Korea if the country pursues its nuclear program, and warned that a conflict with the country could kill millions of people. Tributes have been paid to Uli Steck, one of the most famous climbers in the world, who's died on Mount Everest. The 41-year-old is believed to have fallen from a rock face while spending time acclimatizing at altitude. And this story is trending at bbc.com. These deadly tornadoes in the US state of Texas, at least 3 struck the city of Canton, killing 4 people and causing widespread destruction. Winds flipped cars, snapped trees, and left fallen power lines on the roads. That's all for me for now. Stay with us here on BBC World News. And the top story here in the UK. Theresa May has ruled out increasing VAT for the next 5 years if the Conservatives